Hi, thank you for coming. This is LocalGov Drupal Microsites Platform, or no, running a fleet of websites with ease on the LocalGov Drupal Microsites Platform. Thank you for coming. I hope you all enjoyed the photo and made it back up here. That was fun, and I really enjoyed Bruce's keynote. There's a lot of great stuff in that. I'm Finn Lewis. I'm from Oxford, England. I work for a company called OpenCode doing Drupal development. I've been a long time Drupal developer since I think about 17 years, pushing 18 years, which probably makes me almost a Drupal adult, at which point maybe I feel a bit more grown up about things. But I do love Drupal, still love Drupal, do it every day. I'm also tech lead for LocalGov Drupal, which is the Drupal distribution we're going to have a look at today, alongside LocalGov Drupal Microsites. The slides should be out there if you want the slides, bit.ly/2024-microsites. If you want to play along or get any of the links. So OpenCode, I'm lucky enough to work alongside some other really experienced Drupal developers. Eeks, who have been doing Drupal for longer than me and taught me most of what I know about Drupal. Tank, who I've also worked for a long time with Agile Collective. And more recently, Mark Conroy, who's been instrumental in the LocalGov Drupal front end. He's the front end lead for LocalGov Drupal and has been instrumental in microsites. Come in, sorry, we had to get started, but come on in. So this session, I'll give a little bit of background about the LocalGov Drupal platform and the organization. Look at the user needs for microsites. Look a bit about the Drupal architecture and key contributor modules. Do a quick live demo, hopefully not too long. Hi. And look at the business model and a bit about the future. Just for those that came in, the slides are available at bit.ly/2024-microsites if you want to grab them and play along if there's anything you miss. So yeah, background. Councils. In the UK, we have councils are local public authorities, so like city council, county council, people who do your bins, your council tax, your schools, the local public services. We call them councils. And they've been collaborating on LocalGov Drupal as a distribution to do their main website for about 4 or 5 years now. In the early days, we had significant investment from the central government, something called the MHCLG, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, who have something called the Local Digital Fund. This is no longer there, which is a shame, because over the course of about three years, they gave us about £1 million to invest in the collaboration, the open source collaboration that became LocalGov Drupal. You can read a bit more about the fund at that address, but it's founded on this declaration, a local digital declaration, which says if two councils can collaborate, we'll give you some money to make something, as long as it's open source, as long as it's in the open, as long as it's transparent, and you're following best practices, then we'll give you money to help you develop something. In our case, that was LocalGov Drupal, the website distribution built on Drupal for councils in the UK to do their public-facing site. And I think the success of it is demonstrated by the fact that there are now 51 councils using LocalGov Drupal in the UK. So yeah, LocalGov Drupal is a Drupal distribution on Drupal.org. You can find it at project/localgov on d.o. But we also do most of our work on GitHub for like historical reasons mainly. We are quite keen to move back from GitHub to Drupal.org, which will hopefully happen soon, waiting on the GitLab issue queues to become ready hopefully in the next few months. So yeah, you can find us in both places. It's important for us that we're on Drupal.org to be covered by the security advisory. But yeah, most of the work is in GitHub, and the issue queues will be on GitHub. So do check out both of those places. Bit more about the history. So in 2020, there was, oh, that looks different on my screen. That looks better. I'll check the screen going forward. In 2020, there was Brighton and Hove City Council developed a website in Drupal, spent quite a lot of time and money doing user research, information architecture, experience design, evidence-based design, and came up with a great website built on Drupal 8. Some of the same people then went to work for Croydon Council, just up the road in London, where they were asking the same questions and about to embark on the same process. They said, why are we doing this? Why are we asking the same questions? Why are we doing more user research? Why don't we just do the same thing that they did? Because we're a council, right? We've got the same problems. We've got citizens who need the same things. So after a bit of negotiation, they agreed to share the code, share their research, share their designs. And that was the kind of nascence of LocalGov Drupal. So they shared everything. Croydon built a website in a fraction of the time. I think one estimate was they maybe saved over £100,000 on their build, which is reasonable money, right? They got a great website out of it too. So this proved that multiple councils could use the same code base, could use roughly the same design, a few differences in branding, the same design principles. Fast forward a year to 2021, we had another 4 councils join, making six in total. 2022, another 10 councils joined, making 16 in total. 2023, it went through the roof, another 35. Actually, these are not councils, these are websites. So these are another 35 websites launched by councils, taking the total to 51. Some of these are microsites, some of these were the public-facing main kind of corporate site. So a quick look in numbers. This is from 2019. A credit to Colin Stenning, who used to be at Bracknell Forest Council. He did lots of late night research, tallying the CMSs that councils used at the time. And Drupal came in second with 61 after Jardu at 68 with a proprietary content management system. Of those 61, a significant proportion were Drupal 7 at the time. And then Drupal 8 was hot on the heels. So yeah, look, going forward to 2024, same data compiled by Colin Stenning again. We can see Drupal is now out in the lead at 90 over Jardu's 68, which stayed relatively static. So great to see that Drupal is now the preferred CMS for councils in the UK, and a significant proportion of those are using LocalGov Drupal. So a testament to the success of the distribution and the collaboration, really. I don't really like pie charts, but it's useful to see the same data, to see just the size of the pie. We're not quite at 25% sort of proliferation for main council websites. There's a lot of scope to grow and to get the other councils. There's about 400 councils in the UK, varying sizes. But it'd be great to see, at least 3/4 of that become Drupal over the next few years. So microsites, let's talk about microsites. I just wanted to give you a bit of the background on the LocalGov Drupal distribution, and where we came from and where we're at. But of course, councils don't just have one main site. They tend to have many small little sites, as many organisations do. And in fact, that's something that bearing in mind. This is built by councils for councils, but it's really applicable for any organisation that has lots and lots of microsites, universities, NGOs, corporations. But councils had this need. They have many microsites. Some have up to 100 microsites in our research. We're quite a lot of research going on in the early days of microsites. That astonished me. One council had pushing 100 microsites and a variety of technologies. Some Drupal, some WordPress, Wix, some Braco, Jardu, custom things. So as you can imagine, that's a massive challenge to maintain, massive challenge to manage. Staff move on, suppliers move on. Sites become out of date, sites become unsecure, unsupported. No one knows who has the keys to the microsite. So that puts people in a really difficult position, not to mention inconsistencies in branding, in user experience, in accessibility, in data compliance, GDPR, analytics. If you've got 100 sites on different techs, you can't update them all. So a massive challenge. So a bit about the use cases. What use cases did councils have? Why can't they just put it all on their main website? Well, sometimes you have promotional campaign sites, things like fostering or libraries, where you really need to be promoting a particular service to people. You're not just giving them information about how they can consume your services, but you're trying to get them to come and become a foster parent or to come and use the library. Needs more images, more sort of a different language. Directories is another one. There's something called the local offer in the UK, which is for special educational needs. That's often a separate directory of services managed by different people. So sometimes the content designers are different, and sometimes even public, but not public, but sort of voluntary organisations need access to manage their content. And special events like summer festivals or Christmas markets. Probably many other use cases too. But just a quick think about the user needs. There's a department such as fostering, and as mentioned, they need to have images, they need to have ownership of their microsite, they need to be able to control the layout a bit more. They need control basically, and to be able to continue to iterate on that and have that separate from the main corporate website. Meanwhile, the council or the organisation in control, they need to make sure it's consistent. They need to, accessibility is really important. They need to be able to have analytics to see who's using the sites across the range of sites. Cookie consent, GDPR is important, and changing legislation. We need to update a lot of sites at the same time. Legal terms and conditions might well want to be consistent, and sometimes you want things to be the same design. Sometimes you don't, but for those that you do want to be the same brand and design, consistency is important. But should we have a microsite or not? Again, through our research, we found that people wanted microsites for different reasons, and sometimes these were not necessarily good reasons to have a microsite. And so through work with Croydon Council and other councils, this thing called the proposition was developed, which is on the docs for localgovdrupal.org. And it really just challenges stakeholders and content designers to stop and think before they jump into having a microsite. Why are we doing this? Who is it for? These are the sort of standard questions that I guess most of us would ask when developing any site, but I think it's still applicable when you're deciding to have a microsite. Which users? Has user research been done? What are their needs? How are we going to measure success? Who's going to manage the content? How is it going to be created? What identity does the site need to have? Does it need to be the same brand as the council, or does it need to be different or co-branded? How will it be created and maintained? What's the longevity? When is it over? And in the end, which tool should we use? So out of that, it should be on the main website. It should be a subsection of the main website. Maybe it should be a microsite, which is where we come in, or maybe it should be something completely different, a separate site, or maybe it's just not necessary. So the proposition, I think, has helped lots of councils go, actually, we don't need this microsite. But if you do need a microsite, that's where LocalGov Drupal Microsites comes in. So again, LocalGov Microsites is a Drupal distribution separate from the main LocalGov Drupal distribution. It is a project on Drupal.org. Also, most of our work happens on GitHub. Again, we're hoping to bring it over to Drupal.org relatively soon. And here's an example of some recent microsites made by Sheffield Council. So Sheffield City Council on the right there is their kind of main corporate site. They launched maybe last year or the year before, can't quite remember. And then this year, they launched a series of microsites very quickly, built on the Microsites platform with the help of Big Blue Door, their supplier. And we can see four sites here of slightly different designs and user needs. One for fostering, again, trying to speak to sort of have an emotional persuasion to try and encourage people to become foster parents. You need happy images, you need a certain language, certain colours, and maybe it's less about being branded as the council. So it's a common need we see in councils to promote fostering. This one's more sort of for advertising to encourage private sponsorship and advertising new revenue streams into the council. Again, different language, more corporate design. Another one for the Sheffield City Council plan, looking at I think a council plan is how we're going to build and develop, what's our sort of planning for growth and the economy and planning permission in the buildings over the next 4 years. Lots of content on one site. And then a site for educational needs. As I mentioned, that's a legal requirement for councils to publish provisions for special educational needs and adult learning. And often that's, another need for a site. So relatively consistent in, sort of, I guess, quality of design, and you can see the cookie compliance thing on the left, consistency for the council. They can keep control of all the sites, all the content's managed in one place, but they can have different content managers, different look and feel, different types of language on each site. So before we get into a quick demo, I haven't got a timekeeper going on here, so I should keep an eye on the time. Before I get into a quick demo, I just want a little bit about setting up microsites. There's some kind of idiosyncrasies in the system. So it is one single Drupal install. So one single database, one single code base with multiple domains pointing at the site. So we have this idea of a control site, which is the site where a controller user will log in, create a microsite, create users, assign users to microsites, and manage that whole kind of permissions basis. And then we have the individual microsites, each on a separate domain. That's where an admin user on a given microsite will log in and maybe manage styles and look and feel and configuration, and or an editor user will manage content and not have any access to any of those styles and theming. But we'll have a look at that in a minute. So just a couple of user stories to think about, which I kind of thought about in terms of like the demo. As an admin role, I want to update the styles to fix the header colors, the header and body font, the line spacing, have a bit of control over the theming without any front-end developers involved. And as an editor, I want to edit and update content. I want to fix some layouts of the content, fix accessibility perhaps, and not see any styling options. Because often you don't want your editors to go changing the color of the header just because they feel angry or something. So, demo. Here goes. So, the control site. I'm on the control site here. I'm using DDev locally to manage 5 or 6 different sites, all pointing at the same site. I'm going to log in as the controller user. When we log in here as a controller user, we can see our microsites listed. We could add a new microsite. I won't do that just yet. And we could also manage the people, the user accounts on the site. And importantly, assign users to microsites. So this is all governed by group module in Drupal. Domain access will come in when we're looking at the domains. So essentially we're assigning users to groups and giving each user particular roles on that group. So we can see we've got an admin one assigned to, as an admin role to this microsite. So let's flip over to that actual microsite, which is on LocalGov micro1.ddev.site. And we can see we have a fictional University of Scarfolk, an imaginary town in England somewhere, with a bunch of promotional content, images, text, footer details, and a couple of pages on the menu. I just kind of whipped these up quite quickly, so forgive me for the design. I didn't have any web designer input on it, and yeah, I've never been great at visual design. So if we log in now as the admin one, so this is an admin user on the microsite, we have a dashboard showing our users and content. We can manage media items, content items, menus. We can manage and imagine members. So we could add more members here as the admin of this site. We could invite people, send them an email and have them come and register for an account. They will get access, or you can add existing members. But then what we're going to look at over here, the site settings, site name, standard kind of Drupal site settings, global sort of slogan, front page, that sort of stuff. And the site design. And it's the site design that we're just going to have a quick look at now. Because if we have a look here, the header's a little bit purple, and that doesn't really go with the logo. So again, one of the concepts here is that we don't want to have to involve any front-end developers. And I was really inspired by some of the stuff I've just seen on the Starshot initiative, which hopefully we can bring here soon. Whoa, that away. So here, let me just have a look at my notes to see what I was going to do. That's my notes, that's my script. So we want to change some colors here, like I mentioned. So we're going to go to the global styles. We've got a primary color here, which is correct. This one, actually, we just want to be white. The primary contrast color is a bit blue. If we just go down to the header, that's where the purple is defined. Let's make that the same blue as the logo. So if we go back to the site now, we can see it's immediately changed. So all the parameters that we're setting in these forms are turned into CSS variables and inherited by the theme and immediately available. A couple of other things we can do. I'm not going to go through everything because there's an awful lot. Maybe change the heading font to Libra Baskerville, something a bit more serifed, and change the body font to IBM Plex Sans. Maybe increase the base font size. Line height, it always looks a bit better if it's a bit more spaced. Let's just save that and then go back and hopefully we'll see a flipping of, yeah, so we've got slightly bigger fonts, a serifed heading font and a sans body. So as an admin, hopefully I've got some design skills or some guidance from my designers, but I can go and essentially change a lot of the colors, the fonts, the layout, the parameters that define the look and feel of the site. Let's now go and have a look at the same logging in as an editor. So I just flipped over to another browser where I'm logged into the same site as an editor. And if I go and edit this, if I go to microsites administration first, I see I've got many fewer options. I can manage content and media and menus, but I can't manage any of the site settings for obvious reasons. So let's have a quick look at the editing experience here. If we go to the new faculty page, we can see we've got a new faculty here. We click on edit, then we should see some of the layout paragraphs functionality. I won't go into too much detail, but layout paragraphs essentially is using some of the layout builder functionality, but within paragraphs. So we're restricting it to a particular paragraph field. This proved really popular with our content designers. And I'll come back to this a bit later, but you can add a new section, 2-column, 3-column, add items, paragraph items into your section, and we've got a few that have been predefined, text, image, etc. Let's just grab a bit of text for the sake of argument. Let's pop an image in this side. That's a link. Maybe I should wear my glasses. Let's just upload one of these images. Alt text is obviously important. Cropping is becoming increasingly important as you get different images of different sizes. So just making sure that there is default cropping included, etc. I won't go through all of them. But essentially, the content editor should have all the tools that they need to create pages with reasonable layouts and following the designs that have been defined. Right, let's move on. Let's go and have a look at a couple of other use cases of the site. So, in fact, one thing I didn't mention back on the microsites administration is that on site settings we have a content types form, which allows us to enable and disable different submodules that define different content types. We have news, blogs, events, directories, and a web form content types. It always has the page enabled, the page with the page layout. That's kind of like just the baseline, and then these other things are optional. So you can imagine you might just want an event site. Speaking of which, here's an example of an event site, and again I won't dwell too long. It's relatively simple, quite basic, quite straightforward. I was then very inspired to see what Dries was showing on the events recipe, something we're definitely looking at coming on to. But there's that need, right? We need an event site. We just need a simple site with events. We want to be able to filter by certain things, neighborhoods, prices, categories. Again, this is geared at local government, so neighborhoods is quite standard and important. But then a nice little feature is the event range. So if you want to see stuff that's this week, it just quickly filters out the dates based on what the day is today, or is there anything going on today? Again, that's something that's very popular with council users and citizens. If we just go drill into one of these, we've also got a little add to calendar thing, although I liked the way the Dries was showing it, the little icons next to here. So yeah, that's relatively simple functionality, yet very useful for any stakeholders who need an event site. Let's have a look at another one. This is the third one. It's a directory site, again, a sort of image-led front page. This time we've got a directory. Now this comes out of LocalGov directories, developed for the main LocalGov distribution, but then brought into the microsites distribution, and is actually one of the more popular things that councils need to use. Well, one of the most often used cases for microsites is we need a separate directory for various reasons. This has location data plus facets, which can be configured on a per directory basis. So this might be actually useful to have a quick look at. Less microsite specific, but but quite LocalGov Drupal specific. You may be familiar with the fact that taxonomies, when you create new taxonomies, they become config, and so if you've got content editors creating taxonomies and terms as content, that can be problematic for configuration deployment. So instead of that, in LocalGov Drupal, directory facets have been created as a separate entity type that is completely excluded from config and treated as content. This means that a site owner, as an admin in this case, can go and create new types of facets. Let's just say, for example, we're going to create a new facets type, which is size, and then go and add individual, items into that, large, small, etc. Again, a small but simple thing, yet incredibly powerful, because content designers want to be able to create their own directories, create their own vocabularies, create their own types of things to filter by types of things to filter by. Yeah. Let's just go and have a quick look at a venue now. The venue being an item in a directory that has a location. Not quite sure why it's called venue, but I guess some of them were venues, as in places like this. But this is where a content designer can decide which directory channel their content's going to go into, and then decide which facets. In fact, I need to go and have a look at the directory channel first, because we've just added a new facet type. Again, this is less specific to microsites, but very useful. So yeah, size and cost. You can enable particular facets on a given directory by adding them to that channel. When you then go and add content, say a directory venue again, if you select the particular channel, then you get the facets available for that channel. So this allows someone to have one microsite with potentially many different directory channels with different facets, different terms and vocabularies within each, which then the content editors can go away and use. One other nice thing about this is, I guess, just the location, which again is nothing microsite specific, but it does seem that if you can look up addresses. I haven't tried it on this Wi-Fi network, but it seemed to work with me. Yeah, so it seems to be. This looks like the wrong address, but it has a relatively helpful street address looking up to geolocation services. In the UK, all the councils have access to an ordnance survey lookup, which means you can plug this straight into the bona fide council data for their locality, and you can restrict it down to just their area. But I'll leave that. I don't know what the postcode is for that address, and I don't think that is where the Sagrada Familia is. Fourth use case is a consultation site. In this case, again, sorry about the glaring colours, but the main thing to point out is it's a web form that allows people to make contact. Obviously, with microsites, one of the common needs is people making contact. Now, this is a single web form on the Drupal site that is then embedded on separate microsites. So the site owners will say, you can have this web form enabled on your microsite. It's relatively consistent across all the sites for this particular contact form, but then all of the results will get put in just to each microsite, so you don't get to see each other's results. So yeah, you can pop a message in there. And if we go and log in as the admin user,
Sorry, we have 10 minutes.
We have 10 minutes. This is good. Thank you very much. We can just go and have a look at the results. We can have a look at the results there. And I was going to demo looking at that on other sites just to prove, but we have lots of automated tests that check all of this functionality is, keeping data in each site. So you can take my word for that. Now, so that's just a few of the kind of use cases that come out of the box. Coming soon, though, we're going to hopefully have a better editing experience, maybe even better from what I've just seen today with Experience Builder. But some of this is kind of on its way. If I just do a crush config import, we've got Mercury Editor on the left there, which is contrib for the layout builder, and we've got LocalGov Live Preview on the right, which I will hopefully show you very quickly. So if we go back to, let's go back to this site. And for the Mercury Editor, now when we click edit, we don't go into the edit form completely. We've got the sort of sidebar on the right with some of the fields, and as you can see, as you start typing in some of the fields, it live updates. If you click into some of these text fields, they're live updating too, which is a much nicer editing experience for the content editor. And I think you can drag and drop sections around, which I won't. Will that work? Maybe not. No. So that's something that was not fully tested by us, but seems to be working really well for content editing. And then if I just say save and done on that one, for the microsite design perspective, we saw earlier we had to go to the separate form. This is work by Mark Conroy, which is currently fairly experimental, but does seem to be working very well. But he's managed to pull all of the form fields that we saw there into the sidebar, so that rather than if we go to the header, rather than guessing what colors we want there, we can pick out a color picker and very quickly see what kind of ghastly colors we want for our header, or indeed for our fonts. And I haven't tested absolutely everything, but it does seem that the fonts update directly and the colors update directly. So again, if you've got design chops but you haven't got any front end development chops, this makes it easier to come to a decent design quite quickly. Now I'm seeing the experience builder stuff that we saw just now in the keynote. I can see all of this coming together like quite nicely into a much better experience for people managing the look and feel of their microsites and for managing the content of their microsite. But that's all more about the experience of any site. Having the microsites controllable in one distribution is kind of what the microsites distribution is about. So that's the future. Hopefully we're getting improving on the experience, the user experience of both admins and editors. Let's just talk briefly about key modules. Mentioned a few of them already. Group is the main one that separates content and people into groups. Group sites builds on that and makes, actually we refactored it in the last year. Eeks did a bunch of work and that made things much simpler. So a massive shout out to Christian and Factorial, who make group and group sites and maintain those amazing modules. Domain then controls the incoming domain and routes things to group sites and group. And layout paragraphs is what we've gone with because that seems like the most popular way to manage content and have some layout control. Group sites, respect. Thank you, Christian. Quickly about the business model. How long have we got?
We have 8 minutes.
8 minutes. Okay, we're fine.
Time for QA as well.
Okay. So the business model, I think, is interesting just around how LocalGov Drupal has happened and LocalGov Drupal Microsites has happened, and how we're continuing to sustain the distribution, which is a challenge, right? And it's a slightly different business model than maybe a commercial endeavor like Open Social. But we have lots of great supplier subscribers who pay money into a central pot. Big shout out to Agile Collective, Annotex, Zucha, some of the early people, Chicken. But they're great. Everyone's putting money in, and that's how we really kind of got going in the early days as well. And we also have council subscribers, about 28 now across the UK and Ireland, Tipperary. And everyone puts money into the pot, which then helps to fund the work. So money's collected through subscriptions. We have Open Digital Cooperative at the top, which is a non-profit cooperative company whose members are suppliers and councils, not individual people. And that has a board of directors, and then with the funds we can employ core team, product lead, tech lead, development resource, comms lead, and community lead. And between us in the core team, we all help to manage and supply, services, support the councils and the suppliers, including onboarding, security and bug fixes, regular meetings to review and release work. As we get bigger, new features and regular meetings and community events. We had our first in-person community event last year. I think about 100 and maybe pushing 150 people in a room for a day, like a mini Drupal camp, but specifically around LocalGov Drupal. It was great. We're going to do that more. And hopefully get out to other events too, both in the Drupal sector, but also in the public sector and the council sector in the UK. So yeah, I think there's quite an innovative business model, but we've had to bootstrap ourselves after having funding in the early days, having that removed. But I think it's testament. It's a little bit like the Drupal Association, getting subscriptions and advertising and different revenue streams in order to support this great product. We're just on a very, very, very small scale. So yeah, key takeaways, I think, and I added one earlier, I think, LocalGov Microsites is not just for councils, it's equally applicable for NGOs, universities, any organisation who wants a bunch of microsites under one hood. A Drupal-based microsite system can help you save time and money, can maintain security, reduce the number of microsites, reduce technical debt, having it all in one place. A self-funding open source ecosystem is possible and hopefully growable and sustainable, but it does seem to be working for us. We're a year and a half in, I think. almost 2 years in, and we're continuing to grow. We're continuing to get repeat subscriptions and people seeing that actually putting the money in the pot and funding open development is working. Public sector investment stipulating open source works. I was at a Lagoon Con yesterday where Michael Schmidt, who was coming in remote, was pointing out that in Switzerland, they legislate that actually any public sector code that is funded needs to be open source, needs to be shared open source. I think there's something similar in Australia, something similar in Germany. We should be doing it everywhere, really, because that's how to generate, more open source projects and get more people using Drupal and all the other open source goodness. And the fifth one that Dries just reminded me is like collaboration is key. We wouldn't have been able to do this on our own. Like no one agency or one council would have been able to do what we've done so far. So by getting, I think we're over 50 councils now and 20 suppliers, everyone together, not just the money, that's important, but also collaborating what the needs are and testing it and feeding back. And it's a microcosm of Drupal. And I think that's why we've been successful, because we've learned from the Drupal community about what works and how to do this. And then we've taken that and applied it specifically to our local government sector in the UK, but it's applicable to other sectors too. So it definitely, openly collaborating is key. So do we have time for a couple of questions, if there are any?
Yeah, we have 3 minutes.
Great, let's go. Are there any questions in the room? There's a mic there, so I think can we pass the mic round? I think it's best to ask the questions to the mic for the recording and for anybody who's remote.
All right. Hello, everyone. First of all, thanks for the presentation. It was very interesting. So, in Georgia, almost every municipality used Drupal to host their websites, and all of them were built by our company, but it was done far time ago. And all of them are running on Drupal 7, unfortunately, and not even the multi-site was used that time, and all of them are just the standalone websites. So, for example, if you get a request from the government to, for example, upgrade those websites, would you recommend switching to microsites? And if yes, how easy would it be?
I think yes. If there's enough consistency, and if you can extend microsites to create the functionality that's going to work against all of the sites, then that's the use case for microsites, where there's consistency of functionality. If the websites are all quite different in what they do, and because they've got a long legacy of being different, then that might be a challenge. But if you can get enough of them and then you can extend the microsites platform with additional content types, then yeah, why not? And I think you kind of mentioned the technical debt of having lots and lots of different sites on Drupal 7, means you've got a lot of work to do to upgrade. But
all of them are just standalone websites. So
say again, sorry?
Yeah, standalone.
Standalone, yeah.
Yeah, and there are 70 of them. So basically all of them.
Yeah. But there's still going to be work to do to recreate it. I guess you could write some automated migration, or maybe with these new AI migration tools that we've just seen in Dries's keynote, maybe we can make that a bit easier. But I do think, in the future, I would try and consolidate sites where it makes sense to. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
No worries. Just want to get a picture of everyone before you go away.
We have another question.
Hi, thanks for the talk. It was also really interesting. My question is, does this have multilingual support?
It's a good question. Yes, insofar as is Drupal. I'm just trying to think if anyone's actually done microsites with multilingual. So with LocalGov Drupal, there was a big multilingual push. There's an Irish council using it, which uses the multilingual functionality. I was just trying to think whether anyone did that with the microsites. But there's no reason why not. It says Drupal, right? It's just but enabling and configuring the multilingual modules and configuration.
Yeah. Because sometimes with the contributed modules and them working together and also being multilingual, it's always a bit tricky.
There may be, I can't think of any examples of it having been done. I'll check. There's nothing in Wales, is there, Oliver? Any multilingual multi-sites? No. Yeah. Main sites definitely yes, and LocalGov Drupal multilingual yes. Microsites probably.
Okay, we'll give it a go.
Thank you.
Thanks for the talk. One question that came to my mind, you were talking about 51 sites did you also solve the sysop topics like deploying all these? Do they share the same code base? How do you update 51 council websites to Drupal 10.3 and PHP upgrade and things like that? Did you also solve that with your distribution, or is this another topic?
No, I mean, so the 51 sites, well, all the different council sites, they're all separate installations run by different people. So that this is not all on one microsites platform. These are separate installations by different councils, different versions of Drupal sometimes. So they're not all managed by microsites. So in the case of Sheffield, where's Sheffield? So this is Sheffield. That's their main website, which was on LocalGov Drupal. And then there's a separate install for microsites, which is running those 4 websites. So as they grow, 4 websites, 5 websites, 10 websites, when they upgrade their microsite system, that will upgrade all the websites. So they have 2 Drupal installs, one for the main website and one for all of the microsites.
Okay, I understood that you maintain all of them together. So.
No, there's many councils and many suppliers involved. They're all the councils involved, and each of them host their website in a different way. Some of them internally, some of them with an external supplier. And yeah, we're looking at trying to make that more consistent as well, especially talking to some of the hosting providers here, like public sector should be, running on open source hosting, and they should be trying to do it consistently. Like, why would we want to do it differently all the time? Just like try and make it solid and good. But then there's also lots of suppliers who are involved, and they manage the websites for the councils, and different people do it in different ways. So no, that's distributed in terms of that kind of responsibility. Any more? No. Oh, there's one there behind you. Oh, there's one there as well.
Hi. So as an admin, do you have an umbrella site where you can manage all the editors? Like, let's say you can create editor accounts, you can upgrade their editing rights, or do you have to do that separately in each microsite?
Yeah, no, the umbrella site is we refer to as the control site. And it's this one where you can see your list of microsites, you can see your list of people. You'd add a new person, and then you assign them to a microsite or remove their permissions. Indeed, I really need to remember to put my glasses on. That's already there. That one. So yeah, this is where I don't need to show you the Drupal user form, do I? But this is where you create users and then assign them to a microsite.
Where do you assign them to a microsite?
Let's have a look. Well, do you know what we didn't do? We didn't add a microsite. Let's just add a new one. Site 6. Put your glasses on. Doesn't matter what it's called. LocalGov Micro 6. So that's just created that 6 site. If we then go and edit the members of that, this is where there's one default member, which is the controller, and then we add a member, and we could add any member that we've already created, and then decide whether they're admin or not. At the moment, we've just got 2 roles, admin or not admin. If they're not admin, they're just an editor. So then that gives that permission, that person permission to go and log into that site. And if we just go and have a look at number 6, no, not 16, you'll see that it creates a site and it creates like a default homepage just to kind of demonstrate the paragraphs and stuff that are there, so that when someone logs in, they've got something to play with and explore. And then usually they kind of like start amending that, delete that. And so yeah, one site, the control site, where you have all your sites and all your users, and you can add and remove them as needed. But admins on each site can also add users, but they're the same users because it's one Drupal installation. Anyone, was there one over here? Sorry.
Hello. If you were to start over again, what will you do differently?
Well, my Drupal career, or my choices in love life? No, I don't know. I think we do the same thing, because I think we approached it from a sort of evidence-based, approach. Let's do the research. What do people need? What's the solutions out there? What could we use? What could we do? And we kind of pushed the boundary a bit. We're using groups because it wasn't quite ready. Group 3 and group sites wasn't out, and so we were kind of a bit ahead of the game with lots of patches and everything. But we got it working, and now we just got we can work on the user experience and have that whole kind of thing, build on that. So I think we'd go the same route. Like a lot of the stuff we were using from group, like Christian's a genius. Like some of that stuff, he's kind of like rewriting how core does permissions and the flexible permission stuff. And so that's all kind of like we're building on that now to make sure that people have their content and their users on separate sites and they're not going to bleed. So I think we backed the right horses from a sort of tech structure point. I think I would have encouraged the UK government to continue this funding stream because I think the public sector is getting a lot of value out of what we're doing. And I think that should be supported by, better, but we've had to generate our own ways of doing that. So yeah, good question. I'll think about it more. We'll come back with sorry, you had a question over there. Thank you. And then we're probably out of time.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the presentation. When users can pick their colors themselves, aren't you afraid of having accessibility issues with the microsites? And do you have a plan to maybe mitigate that?
I'm glad
risk?
you asked that because I missed that bit. Let's get rid of this. There's this little thing called Sally in the corner, which pops up an accessibility helper. I think it's an open source tool called Sally, SA11Y, and there's LocalGov Sally that plugs that into LocalGov. But if we go to this one, for example, we see that Sally's pointed out that there's a problem here with consecutive headings, not with the colors. It does do contrast as well, but I haven't. But in this case, heading 1 to heading 3 shouldn't happen. So I think by having these kind of tools embedded, or indeed AI tools like we've been seeing, there's going to be obviously an AI accessibility helper, right?
Is that a Drupal module? Sally?
Sally, I think, I don't know. I think it's an open source thing. I think maybe it's a JavaScript tool, but there's LocalGov, github.com/LocalGov Sally. Sally, is it with ones or is it with L's? It's with ones. So yeah, LocalGov Sally is our integration with it, and I think you can then. It's probably detailed there where the LocalGov Sally stuff comes from. There is a Drupal module. There you go.
Thank you.
Of course, there's a module for that. Great. Well, is that all we got time for? Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming. Sorry we started a bit slow.